in student days in Dublin and at Milltown, I became aware of the Latin Mass which was happening in one point on the quays, St. Paul's, and the high altar had above it this very large and moving scene of the passage that we have just read. Saul of Tarsus, struck down, blinded, brought to ground zero, and the horse next to him, and this bright light coming out of somewhere. Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me? He had to be brought to that point of nothing, so as to answer, Lord, what wilt thou have me to do? That's the point of availability. Handing over the reins. Lord, the control panel is now in your hand. I can't do any more. Take over. And even there, he got up, had to be led by the hand. And even there, the Lord didn't tell him directly. He said, get up, go to Damascus, and it will be told you what you have to do. Real humility from a leader of the Jewish group who was trying to destroy this nuisance of a sect. And then the Lord prepared Ananias at Damascus, and he knew that this man was going to come, and he himself was actually puzzled. He'd heard about the man and how dangerous he was, but the Lord assured him of the project that he had for him. Now, what is not known by many is that the very place where this happened is now important. We've heard about Damascus in the context of war and bombardment in recent years, but few know that actually in the very place where Ananias lived, or just opposite it, the same area anyway of that ancient city, because Damascus, like Rome, like Athens and some other cities, have an ancient and unbroken history of life and civilization. Well, there, the Lord has honed in and done something which merits attention. It's this. For some years now, there has been a centre of attention between East and West in the puzzling case of Myrna, this lady who was by jurisdiction under Rome, but by tradition of Eastern rite. That can easily happen in that part of the world. And the Lord chose this person in this cultural context to get a message through, both to East and West. The Vatican actually took it seriously, and I believe that years ago a meeting was arranged between John Paul II and herself, or at least his representatives, because of the content of what she was getting from the Lord, which directly impacted on what the Lord wanted and how it should be done in this world right now, and could only be handled by the Pope, though we can make ourselves aware of the issue already and spread the news that the Lord's will is here. It's this. Years ago, when she was much younger and hardly married, good marriage there, Christian marriage, the Lord started to do things. First of all, in the context of the icons around, they started to ooze miraculous oil. And then miracles would draw attention and draw crowds. But they were very prudent because they, from the beginning, refused anything to do with money. No offerings to be left whatsoever. That kept them uncontaminated. But the miracles were clear and powerful. They can't be denied. Healing is miraculous or not. Well, things then got bigger, and then these messages started to come through. It was noticed that once every 5 years or so, when the two Easters corresponded, a huge number of things would happen. And it became clear from what she was being told by the Lord and had hand on, that his will was that this scandalous division of two Easters be healed. It could only be done by the highest church authorities. Now it did percolate through, therefore, to the Vatican and to the Holy Father, John Paul II, and it's possible also that it affected indirectly his successor, because he was head of the CTF for a long time under John Paul II and had to handle all these issues, which could explain why he, before retiring as Pope, did draw up a document in which this could happen. Like John Paul II, his predecessor, whose mind he shared, he knew the importance of Easter and of the scandal that this division has caused for a millennium against the Lord's wishes. But the fact that these wishes have become now explicit meant that they both had to do something about it if they possibly could. John Paul II talked about getting the Church to breathe again with its two lungs. Benedict XVI went as far as drawing up a model, drawing up a document in which, as a great theologian, he knew what could be done and not done so as to make this happen. It's probable that the ancient date, actually the unchanged one that would be adopted in that case, would be actually the Eastern one, which would not be surprising, as it's always on the Eastern date of Easter that the miracle of the Hagiophos, the Holy Fire, comes. In fact, it hasn't yet come because they still haven't had Easter. It'll be the beginning of May sometime that they will have their Easter, and you'll be sure that the fire will come. The Lord will be faithful to his appointment, always in the hand of the ancient Patriarch of Jerusalem, which therefore is the Greek one, successor of St. James. It is something which is the result, initially, of what was only, as it were, a local quarrel, a bust-up, if you like, between the Bishop of Rome and the Bishop of Constantinople. But the only thing is that it stayed that way and then spread as the East grew bigger. And so we have it now with us for a millennium and very much entrenched. It became more complex when the calendar was reformed under Pope Gregory. We lost nearly a fortnight of time on the calendar so as to make up for what was coming out of sync with regard to the sun. But it's made things very complex now with regard to getting dates back. But all this basically is human material, and the divine is of a different order. And if we believe in the Lord's will as expressed in his prayer before giving up his life on Calvary, the high priestly prayer, then we must take seriously this prayer, that they may all be one, and indeed perfectly one. And what is less one than 2 dates for Easter, the centre of it all? It's actually pure nonsense. And so we need also to be aware that there are collateral effects. One is that without this other lung, we wheeze. We become more and more westernized, actually more Protestantized. We forget the calm, serene otherness that the East has never lost. That approach to the all-holy, which we now take very casually. We need them, but also they need us, because without Rome, things then become, in practice, somewhat nationalistic. For them, it's quite important to know which Orthodox church they belong to, whereas we don't even think of that. I'm just a Catholic. We go anywhere in the world and the church is ours. So they secretly admire that bit of us, that we have the same everywhere. However, having said that, they have the advantage also, because they can't have an ecumenical council, of never changing. And so they have what they've always had. If one goes to the Divine Liturgy in any Eastern country, one will see exactly what was seen there before, at least 1,000 years ago, probably actually far more, because it was already there at the baptism of Kiev. We're talking there about a long, long time ago. The story is that they weren't quite sure which rite to embrace. So they sent legates here and there. And when it came to going to Constantinople, they found something so heavenly, they didn't know whether they were in heaven or on earth. And that's what they chose then for the baptism of that whole Eastern Bloc, which operates in Slavonic, basically the present Russia and more. And if one wants to see majesty, one wants to go to Moscow Cathedral, the maximum possible on earth, to create an atmosphere of otherness and angelic praise. And we make do with the quickie. We need them, and we need their calm, and God wants to get that message through. Let us listen to what the Spirit is saying to the churches.